In 1918, at the end of the First World War, the Ottomans found themselves on the losing side, and as is the case with most wars, the victor decides what happens next. In this case, the French, the British, and the Russians decided to divide up the Ottoman Empire among themselves. The bulk of the decision making actually took place in a conference in San Remo in Italy. It was in this conference that the mandate for Palestine was given to British by the League of Nations. Now, the so-called mandate system is basically just a thinly veiled system which is still occupational and colonialistic in nature. It basically meant that even though new states are being formed, the British would have authority over those states until the British decided that, well, these states are now politically mature and can rule themselves. And then they would become independent. This conference was attended by the Prime Minister of Britain, France, Italy, and had representatives from Japan, Greece, and Belgium. No Arabs or Turks were present at these conferences, even though it was their land that was being divided up. Now, you may say that, well, they lost the war, so obviously it doesn't matter what they want, right? But, see, the British had help from the Arabs, and to them, they had made some promises. They had rallied the Arabs to revolt against the Ottoman Empire, hence using them to win the war. And for this, they were in touch with Hussein I Ali, the Emir of Makkah. Now, the Emir had a very important position in the Ottoman Empire, and he had considerable influence. And he claimed to have been speaking for all of the Arab-speaking territories when he said that they would help the British, and they did. They revolted against the Ottomans. And in turn, he asked for independence. From July 1915 to May 1916, 10 letters were exchanged between Hussein ibn Ali, the Emir of Makkah, and Sir Henry McMahon, the High Commissioner at Cairo for the British. In one of the letters dated 24th October 1915, Sir Henry McMahon promised the Sharif of Makkah to recognize and support the independence of the Arabs within the territories proposed by him. These territories included the Arabian Peninsula, Syria, and Syria at that time included Lebanon, Palestine, and Transjordan. These territories also included Iraq, then known as Mesopotamia, as a purely Arabic state. In other negotiations, the British also made promises and deals with King Ibn Saud of Najd, but it turns out these weren't the only pacts the British were making. Altogether, Great Britain had 19 secret agreements related to the fate of the Middle East. And it's very clear from the get-go that they obviously planned on breaking at least some of them. Now, one of these secret treaties was signed in 1916, right after the end of the correspondence between the Emir of Makkah and the High Commissioner from the British side in Cairo. Now, this agreement, signed in 1916, is called the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Under this treaty, this is the map that emerged. And the treaty stated that in the blue area, France, and in the red area, Great Britain, shall be allowed to establish such direct or indirect administration or control as they desire, and as they may think fit to arrange with the Arab state or Confederation of Arab States. But see, since this was a secret agreement, the Arabs had no idea what was going on. They believed that they have been promised an independent state and that's what they will get. It was a year later, in November 1917, that the Sykes-Picot Agreement actually became public, and the Arabs found out that they had been deceived. Now, in the same year, in the same month, another declaration came forward. This declaration would be the reason as to why there is still war raging in the Middle East, especially between Palestine and Israel. Now, this is called the Balfour Declaration. It was issued in 1917 on November 2nd, and the exact words are, "A national home for the Jewish people," and this was to be made in the area of Palestine. The treaty did mention, "Nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine." Clearly, the implementation fell short on the latter half of the declaration. Over the past few decades, the vast majority of the indigenous Arab populations of Palestine have had to flee or they've been evicted from their homes. And those who stay, as we know today, live in conditions of war and genocide. And this is how the foundations of the State of Israel within the State of Palestine was laid. Let's be very clear, the Balfour Declaration only mentioned that they'll be building a home. It used very vague terminology, and that is why it is one of the most controversial documents to have ever been created. And there were no actual maps or outlines made at this time. All of that comes later. We'll talk about that maybe in another video. Make sure to subscribe. See you next time.